Okay, welcome to the 4Corners podcast. Shad, we have some very special guests this week.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. Shad here with Brad. Matt is out tonight. Got some family stuff. First of all, thank you, everybody, for joining us, whether you're with us live or listening later. Don't care. Just glad that you're here. But tonight, we have some special guests here with us, some folks that were kind enough to join us for this. We're going to be joined tonight by two guys who are very notable from an online community that took off. That would be Mr. Tex and Mr. Crow from the Black Pants Legion. Thank you for being here, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Appreciate you guys taking some time out to join us for this show. It's I think it's fair to say Brad and I both enjoyed your stuff for a while, and hey, when you said, we'd be game for it, we were thrilled. So here we are. I had a moment there. I just almost lost my train of thought. Excellent.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be sitting there and I will interrupt an argument with another argument.
Mm-hmm.
And usually my friends have to yell tangent alert and get the stick to push me back on track. That can happen.
I usually just say, well, I've been hit in the head a lot. I forget things sometimes, but
It's okay. You're allowed to do. You're allowed to forget. I find the thing that people don't forgive is when you just shit your pants. That's where they're usually like,
Nobody
"All right,
forgets that."
Nope, we're not gonna forgive that one.
Well, this is kind of new for us because we did this podcast for like 6 years, recorded as just a podcast, and this is like our fourth live stream. So being live versus, hey, if you screw up, you can just delete it and no one ever knows is like still new territory to us.
Yeah.
Why would
We're
you do
rolling
that?
it live.
That sounds insane.
It's more fun though because people like chat at you and stuff.
Oh, sure. No, I mean, Mike and I have run the BPL podcast for like 3 years now, and
Yeah.
we know it's a lot to go into this. So kudos for running it for as long as you have, because that shit's not easy.
Yeah.
No. Because I think
Yeah,
people like, I mean, it's fun to do, but I think sometimes people don't realize like when you're like reviewing something or, you're doing prep, like sometimes, you do a 90-minute podcast and you spent like 6 hours prepping for it.
Yeah. That's something we got to deal with because we watch a lot of old footage, and sometimes it's a lot of fun. Andre the Giant versus Stan Hansen's a lot of fun, and sometimes, well, it's a bit more work to get through some stuff. Don't ever watch Blackjack Brawl. Just take our word for it.
Heroes of Wrestling was worse.
Well, they're both bad. Brad, I just did get a note from somebody. Could you go ahead and turn Tex and Mike up just a little bit?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, turn us up.
All right.
Have
Now
them
you can
try
hear us
that.
chewing. We're just gonna eat sandwiches on the mic. Oh,
That's
man.
okay.
Have them try that.
All right, I think we ought to be good. So what we're doing here is, we wanted to give you guys an opportunity to come on and talk about stuff that appeal, but since we have historically been a wrestling podcast, let's start. Do you guys have any background with the wild world of professional wrestling? And
All right, I can dive in.
go for it.
I am a huge fan of Macho Man Randy Savage. The man was a god king of wrestling because he worked really hard. He went out there and worked with everybody. He made everyone look good.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a professional. He was an utter professional. And he had mastered the art of walking in and just saying mad, insane nonsense without repeating himself for a good 60 seconds. Now, that may sound easy to do on drugs or what have you, but he would just go out there and do 60 seconds of, the cream of the crop raised, and just get everyone going. And I have no...
World.
Indeed.
So Tex, he's legitimately insane. So pre WWE, so there's like a story. So he and his family like ran opposite of Memphis. So they ran like what's called an outlaw promotion, which is pretty much like in the world of wrestling, it was just outside of what was acceptable. And they had this big feud with like the regular Memphis promotion. And there was this they rolled up on this wrestler called Bill Dundee outside of a gym, and he pulled a gun on them, and Savage like took the gun from him and pistol whipped him in this parking lot.
Yeah, that was
Wrong move, brother.
that was outside of Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. Bill Dundee showed up after the show with the gun to try and scare him off from it, and Savage took the gun and broke Bill Dundee's jaw. That's
That's the hero we need.
and
Yes.
He's also famous, like pre-WWE, he's famous in Memphis because he, like in 84, 85, he pile drove Ricky Morton through a table. And not like the ones today, it was like a legit table.
yeah. He is also, check this out, Randy Savage is in the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. And when they were running the Outlaw promotion, which was called ICW, he actually showed up at the dealership where my father-in-law worked to buy the ring truck. And I said to him, I was like,
Laugh my ass off was I saw an interview with Jake the Snake Roberts. And, Macho Man made Jake, have the snake bite himself to prove it wasn't poisonous because he's like, maybe it's defanged and maybe it isn't, but someone might try to bump off the old Macho Man. Like it was a conspiracy.
I've seen that. That's a great interview because Jake does it and he's all pissed off because he's having to do it in the back without his adrenaline going. So he got in the ring. He said, I just paintbrushed the hell out of that snake and turned it loose on him.
Yeah, Macho Man's really screaming. That's...
What do you think? What do you think traumatized more children? That the snake bite, or was it the powers of pain driving the spike through animals' eye? No, it was the Road Warriors doing the spike and
Dusty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Those were, I think, the two traumatizing things as children.
Or Earthquake killing the snake.
I remember, like, back in the day when wrestling was on TV, they had no idea what they were doing. So they just did it, like, turned it up to 11. They were like, I could jump off this 8-story thing. And you're like, I think his leg is really broken. And they're like, yep, next show.
Yep. Mike, or Crow, what about you? What background for you, man?
Well, I started really watching wrestling when I was 6, and this is 1993. So I'm not super. I'm pretty young in terms of like wrestling. I didn't watch it in the 80s. I wasn't old enough, and I really wasn't that interested in TV. But I really got into it with my brother and my friends in the neighborhood because that was like the thing at the time. And so everything from like I would say like the early 90s all the way up until like the mid 2000s is like the area of WWE that I know. And then that's pretty much like I had like Stone Cold Steve Austin like action figure, which ended up getting like run over several times, like things like that. That's my experience with it at the time.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of wrestling, just in terms of like the actual like techniques behind it and martial arts for that matter. But just more of a fan. I'm not like super nerdy into it. Unfortunately, I'm not.
I believe
too
you
much
and I
ADHD.
could have.
I can't keep track of everything I do.
Yeah, you and I could probably have long conversations about those topics, but that's not what we're doing tonight.
So here's my question.
Go for it.
You guys are the wrestling experts in here. So Captain Kirk, original series Star Trek. Right? Now,
I would love to see Kirk in the ring.
The reason I bring that up is because, as you know, wrestling is a performance art. And so Captain Kirk, his fighting was very stylistic and a performance art. Okay, who would you pair Captain Kirk in his prime versus for a fair fight?
For a fair fight?
Or an interesting one?
Riker.
Riker
Get that
would
ambo
demolish
jitsu.
him.
Yeah, Riker would just smush him into something. He's like a really big dude.
Riker's huge.
Okay.
He's like a heavyweight.
Yeah, Riker's 6'3". I met him.
I mean, Kirk's scrappy.
That's not gonna make a difference.
I mean, he lasted with Spock when Spock was horny.
I have a clarification question. are you wanting a good match?
Yeah.
Or you want, okay, for a good match, I think the most fun thing to do would be to put Captain Kirk in the ring with with Terry Funk. Because
Okay.
Terry Funk was crazy enough that he would get all kinds of stuff. And you would hear Terry Funk shouting about it. You know, here goes Kirk for the double axe handle, and you'd see Funk stumbling over. Oh, you son of a bitch, that's my eardrum!
I would love. So you hear very distant mumbled in there, like, I'm gonna get on the middle. Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
I always think it's kind of funny because I know people who said that they love Captain Kirk, even though it's all goofy and the fighting is silly, but then they roll their eyes at wrestling, and I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just the wrestlers can do it for 45 minutes.
In my time in the ring doing it, I developed kind of an overall philosophy, and some people said the way I kind of developed it out was that wrestling is like Shakespeare in the Round. Everybody kind of knows what the beats are. You have nowhere to hide when something screws up. You have people on all sides, except you probably don't have everything planned out ahead of time, and everything you do hurts. So, you know, if you want to, my way of explaining what professional wrestling is you have to get the crowd engaged. Because if they're not engaged, then you know, screw it, roll up and get out of there. But
Yeah,
that's
you told me before that the main like thing that you as a wrestler when you were in the ring was just when the crowd was giving you all that energy, it was like that was what I was here for. That's it. You could pay me nickels and dimes, but that's it. Yeah.
like it's in my veins. I did also just get a message, by the way, that said put Captain Kirk in the ring with Dusty Rhodes and see what happens.
Oh man, that would be the American dream.
You know, you get funky like a monkey, Daddy. Let's do this, Captain.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
You know what? All right, I'm making
he gets
notes.
like he goes to get off the Titantron, and he's like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna whoop your ass, and everyone's just like, oh, Kirk's calling him out, and then he comes out of the Titantron, it's like it's a fucking stunt actor.
Would have to be.
Yeah, it's like a 6'2" stunt actor, and the guy's like, holy shit.
The story that about William Shatner that really stuck out to me is apparently at one point someone squared up with him in a parking lot, and he was like setting himself to do the Kirk dropkick, and he had this thought where he was like, "This is a terrible idea. I should not do this." It's like, oddly enough,
he was tempted by.
it's just habit at that point that he's going to throw a drop.
I think if you know how to do a drop kick, you start thinking like, man. I mean, I know it's terrible to say, and I know it's terrible to say, but sometimes you hear that like baby on the other side of the store, and you just think for like a second. But you don't do it because that's horrible. Why would you do that? That's fucked up. But for that moment, once you know that you know how to do a drop kick, it's almost impossible. It's like Call of the Void.
It just goes through your mind like, if I could get that jump up there, man, I could get both feet on him.
Problem is
Your visual calculus for how high you can jump and your arcing abilities, it's almost like becoming an artillery person at that point.
Problem is when you land, though, that's going to hurt.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why you always have to have fights on broken glass, because then nobody wants to do anything.
So in the performance aspect, you guys have consistently, for a while now, been putting out really quality content on YouTube. And, you know, there's so many different ways that you could go into it, but what is your favorite part of that process?
Well, I think the favorite part of the process is just discovering what we can get away with in terms of what we can build. Because in YouTube, especially mainstream YouTube, is governed by cheap and dirty. It's people who shit out a video every 2 days, and it's always got the same sort of really misleading title and a really annoying thumbnail, and you'll watch the video and you realize it's incredibly low effort. It's not polished. It's recycling a lot of material, and it shows utter contempt for the audience. And that's fine because there are a lot of people who, well, they don't realize that YouTube is gaming them. YouTube wants you to keep your eyes glued and not interact with anything. That's why shorts have taken off. They want this to be, they want someone to be scrolling through and mindlessly scroll on their app forever. And that's how Facebook is. It's all about positive reinforcement and what have you. And what I like is that Mike and I and my team have built this thing where we can release feature-length documentaries on incredibly niche and weird stuff that is funded by the community. And we can be good for it. We can make a movie. We can make feature-length documentaries. And doing that in an age where everything is so disposable and so utterly temporary is a joy.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, why do we go through all this fucking brain damage to make something like this? And it's like, well, I could be cheap and dirty and make something that makes me hate what I do, or I can constantly look to say, what new shit can we do and achieve it? So the whole idea is, my favorite part of all this is being able to follow dreams and make dreams manifest. That is magic.
Absolutely. We had a legend pass just recently, Roger Corman, and he was pivotal to the success of so many things that we take for granted today. And I think me and Tex kind of want to be somewhat similar to that, like to reach that, like, because he wasn't like a legend, like people would say, like, oh, I know who that director is, or whatever.
He was king of the bees. He made yeah, sure. Were all of his movies 5-star? No, but
No.
he finished every single one of them.
Yeah,
He
he
also
made people.
discovered-
He found a way to make people work who always had trouble finding a way to finish things, and that is a rare gift.
Well, the other thing that's brilliant about it is he discovered half of Hollywood, and he didn't lord it over them. He encouraged them to be their best, and he would take chances on people who had failed before, chances on people who no one would work with. He was that driving force for it. Guy made like 400 fucking movies. Roger Corman and Rudy Ray Moore are my
Yes.
heroes in film. Rudy Ray Moore is the guy who did Petey Wheatstraw, the Devil's Son-in-Law. He's the king of blaxploitation. The guy said, I'm making this movie for my friends, and I'm putting my friends in the movie because I am convinced that there are people in every town in America that like what I like. And he was right. He sold the first movie out of his fucking car. He drove the first print around city to city airing this out. And he made a fortune doing it. He also invented rap. I mean, you find that there are these amazing characters out there who just say, I'm going to go do this. And they just keep doing it. And that sort of magic is why I'm a filmmaker.
Yeah,
I think along what you're saying, like Ray Harryhausen, just like his attention to detail. Like he could have been just doing the crappiest movie ever, but he would still put the same effort into his special effects.
Well, yeah. The thing is that you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, like, what is legacy? Some people go, I have kids. That's my legacy. And I'm like, yeah, they may grow up to hate you. You know what I mean? So what is your legacy? Making the world a better place? Sure, that's part of it. But every person dies twice. That's an old proverb. Every person dies twice. You die the first time when that brain stops firing, electricity through you and your heart flatlines. That's the first death. The second death is when nobody knew you existed, when the last person who knows of your deeds, your actions on this earth stops talking about you and replaces that little nugget of knowledge with, well, memes or cat pictures or whatever. You just become written over in memory. I realized if I was going to have a legacy in this world, it would be for making something and helping inspire other people to make stuff. Not a day goes by that I'm not greeted by somebody who says, hey, you helped me do this. I started writing again. I started drawing again. I started painting again. I'm working on a video game. I'm going back to school. I'm trying to lose weight. All these people say, thank you, Tex, for inspiring us. You, Mike, the team, you do all this amazing stuff. And that's partially why when we make these large films, we line them up with charity. We've raised over $500,000 in the last few years as a bunch of D-rate YouTubers. So don't let your memes be dreams. Go light that shit on fire. Jump on your dreams like the last chopper out of Nam.
I love that.
So I had this metaphor pop in my head while you guys were talking, and I don't know how far off base this is, but it sounds to me, because you mentioned doing your projects, the community being involved, it being, funding it, that sort of stuff. Would this be kind of the YouTube equivalent of a barn raising, a big correct something?
I think so, because my thesis was that if I started a Patreon years and years and years ago, God, 6-7 years ago,
Right.
I started it because Comcast raised the price of my internet 3 times over, and they put a cap on it. So to have the internet that I still have, like the internet I enjoyed the month prior to that, I would have had to come up with about $200 a month. And I was in grad school. I was so broke I couldn't afford to pay attention. I was piss ass broke. And I said, well, okay, community, I'm sorry, but the fun YouTube stuff experiment is over. I can't do this anymore because I'm limited by, my internet provider. And they said, start a Patreon. We want you to keep making stuff. Now, this many years later, every week I go on my Patreon and I answer every single question that everyone has in this long audio format, probably too fucking long, but I don't care. And I have this need to answer to these people. They are my boss. And through that collaborative spirit, I said, here's the things I want to do this year. And I think we can achieve most of them. And they fund me. And I've managed to hire a team. I've managed to pay them well. I've managed to improve people's lives. And along the journey, we've done so many crazy things. We saved George Ledoux's house recently. He's the voice of Duncan Fisher and MechWarrior. We've barely
Male
3
Neutral
people.
Warrior, if anybody remember Male Neutral Warrior from Baldur's
Neverwinter
Gate.
Nights.
Neverwinter Nights, yeah.
So he's done so many amazing things, and we had to pay him back, because he did good for the community, so we do good for him. We paid for 3 funerals. We've saved multiple houses. We bought people cars into Max of Madness. We also tried to buy Albania's Air Force, but they wouldn't play ball.
They never do.
No.
No, so I reached out to their ambassador and their foreign minister and everyone else, and I had said, I will buy these planes. I know you're selling them. I can see them on the satellite photo. I want these MiGs. I want them. And so they didn't respond. They were just like, eh. I told them I would wear an I Heart Albania t-shirt for a year in public until Albania is for free if they sold me 1 plane. But no, friendship with Albania canceled.
So this is for both of you. You mentioned earlier how YouTube kind of has this churn looking for the next thing.
Of course.
So you've kind of defined how you look at the filmmaking stuff. What is your definition, and how is it different of a content creator?
Well, it's all about care. It's all about care. That is the most important thing, is care. Like, if you're doing this for a job, if I said, go make a grilled cheese, and you're making it for yourself or your loved ones, you're probably going to do a really good job. You're going to probably make sure it's not fucking burned. You're probably going to make sure you're using not Kraft cheese. You're probably going to, use some not Walmart bread. You're going to make some choices that make it a little better, a little more personal, made with love, like we used to say at Grandma's cooking, right? But if I said go make 100 grilled cheeses a day, how much effort you going to put into that? Probably not a lot. And if I said, and I'll pay you a menial wage for it. Now you have all the recipe for sadness and disappointment. That is content creation. Making art is art. They're different things. One's a song in your soul that you free by pouring out your brain onto paper or by exercising the strength of your body in everything you do. The other is pulling a lever and pressing a button for money. And the problem is when you sell yourself, you're sold forever. You can only sell yourself once.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well, I think the problem you see with that too is, it's really easy to get like super popular doing that stuff, but retaining your popularity is like a skill in of itself. So then you get those people who are like on 14 minutes and 50 seconds of their like 15 minutes, and they just more and more desperate to like keep it going, and it just
I can tell you a warning story about that. There was a guy I knew who was a YouTuber who went from, God, this is about 8 years ago. He went from 10,000 subscribers to 200,000 subscribers in 6 months, right? And he was talking about maybe collaborating with me. And then as soon as he took off like that, just boom, he suddenly had no room for anyone else. And most of his content was in one game and one game only. And he got 100% of the player base of that game. But the problem is that most of his fan base was like 13 to 15 years old because that was the player base of that game. Guess what? Kids grow up. And when they did, they moved on to other games. He stayed the same. So then you go look at this channel 6-7 years down the line, and you see, wow, look, this guy has 500,000 subscribers. That's fucking amazing. And then you look at the retention on videos, and it's a few hundred views. That's the Icarus effect. This happens all the time. The problem is if you don't know why you suddenly got some clicks or views or what have you, you're not going to know how to keep that audience. And two, if you don't like it, if it becomes something you gotta do, it's going to be miserable. It will kill your soul. And people know that. People know when you're not having fun.
Well, and people know effort too. Like I was going to say when you're talking earlier, the one I hate are people that have been doing this for like 8 years and have a lot of subscribers, and they're talking on a worse microphone than I am. Like that.
Sure.
That that like bad sound quality is like instant checkout for me. It's because it's like you can spend $50 and have decent sound.
Well, sure. I mean, it's that 10% rule, right? It's that 10% rule. Like if I bring you a slice of cake at a restaurant and I just take it out of the frozen storage and plonk it on the plate and bring it to you, versus I take it out and then I put a little whipped cream on it and some cherries on the side and sprinkle some chocolate. That extra 10% makes that a much better experience, even though it really didn't cost anything. Same thing in content creation.
So you have in your content building, you talked about community a lot, and it's like every time that I have started one of your videos or your podcast, the BPL podcast, which is not the Berkeley Public Library.
No. We actually had, I did get an email from the Berkeley Public Library, so remind me of that. Remind me of that, and I'll tell you that story.
Well, go ahead and do it now, and then I'll ask my question after.
Yeah, so here's what happened. So we had joked that we had joked for a while that hey, we're not the Berkeley Public Library podcast. They do have a podcast. Most libraries have a podcast. And so I had joked that I bet somebody who's not paying attention or has had a few too many gin and tonics is probably calling into that podcast, leaving questions about Battletech, and being like, okay, Cranston Snore drove a custom, and just going on and on and on. And so I got an email from the Berkeley Public Library podcast, and they said, Yes, we do occasionally get very specific, very, very specific questions about Battletech. And we have to toss those out because we know nothing about it.
Oh my god, that's so great.
I hope it's something like about the manufacturer of like a charger.
Yeah, it's something like, well, accelerated myomers, and the librarian's like, what does this have to do with Dewey Decimal System?
So back to the community thing. Everything of yours that I've watched, everything I've listened to, and like I said, I'd actually I'd gotten on board with listening to your stuff pre-pandemic because like, oh, this is cool. I'm enjoying it.
He got me listening to your stuff.
Oh,
And
thank you.
at the beginning, at the beginning of every one of them, you have a particular greeting that you'll use in reference to a particular group. So I wanted to give you both of you an opportunity to talk about, building this community, what that's, what it means to you, that sort of stuff.
Well, the idea of community is this. A lot of content creators look to payday. They look to payday, or they have dreams of the greater payday. And their payday to each person is different. Maybe some people's payoff is fame, right? Maybe some people's payoff is having enough money to buy a house, or maybe it's to get a lucrative deal or to work into a better job or whatever. Everyone has their thing they're looking for, that which renews their purpose. For me, I realize I'm not going to live forever. And the things that have saved my life and made my life better are not monetary in value, but friendships. And building these interconnected networks of decent people is all the best medicine against hopelessness and negativity and nonsense and fear. And so, in building the Black Pants Legion community, I've had the help of many wonderful people. And I just say, hey, let's not be dicks. Let's all hang out. Let's have a good time and look out for each other. And there's so many people who've told me they met their best friends in my communities. So many people have said, I hang out with these people now on the regular. So many people have said, I love going to the yearly meetup. I love going to all these things. I love meeting all these strange, weird nuts that follow in your gravity. And I'm like, good. The idea of community building is the ultimate reward for me. Because, yes, a lot of other content creators try to build a brand, something that can be purchased and sold. I don't want to sell anything. I just want to create a positive experience and, at best, a prototype of something that should outlast me for generations.
Yeah, the other hosts and I met on a message board probably 22
Actually, all
years.
three of us did.
Yeah, about 22 years ago.
The fun story about that is we all kind of met on this one group message board, and we kind of gravitated to each other because we had some shared tastes. And then there was one person who ended up in a leadership position who decided that they were going to flex, and a bunch of us were like, you know what, no, and we just bailed. And that small group, I mean, we still talk to each other all the time. We've got our own community. We've got our own. It's not big, but that's okay. We've got the running gags and that sort of stuff, and enjoying similar things, and then we can talk about the shared interests. So, Crow, we haven't caught for you to be able to talk much right now.
Oh, dude, I don't mind.
But still, it's bad form to have someone be a guest on your show and then not also spotlight them as well.
No worries, man.
Yeah, not.
I'm used to I'm more used to working behind stage, and
Okay.
I don't have really a problem being on stage. I still don't like, spotlight kind of stuff, so I'm gonna be a little awkward.
It's okay. What? Okay, you said behind stage stuff. What's, for the folks that don't know, what is your what would you call yourself in this behind stage thing?
A production specialist. I do pretty much anything from coiling cables to setting up cameras to running audio and lighting, moving,
He's an editor,
climbing.
and a producer, and an audio engineer.
I have a lot of skills on a lot of things, and I think I could probably end up being a teacher at some point in my future.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I've done it. I've already taught kids before, but I was on a contractor basis, and I didn't have a degree for it. So,
So what of the process is your favorite part?
my favorite part is when I get text to watch the final thing, and he says, "That's it." Send it to my computer. You know, that's usually my favorite part, because that means like right after that, we get to sit back and watch everyone talk about what they're gonna do in this video or whatever, and then watch the actual premiere. Honestly, the premiere is probably the one thing that we went back and forth on a few times. We're like, well, maybe we should do a premiere for this one. Then we just remember how like hype everything was, and it was like we couldn't like get a theater to bring everyone to watch this, but it was almost like having a theater and showcasing your movie at like a film festival. It was really cool. I never had any of my films that I've ever, and in documentaries before I met Tex, I've been to a film festival before, and this is like the closest thing, and it's honestly, I feel much better at this because at least I'm more familiar with people here.
Okay. While we've got a little time left, I want to continue on the community front.
Can I ask a real question before we skip to that one? If I know it's probably a hard one, but do you have one of the ones you've done that like you would say is like your favorite, and that goes to both of you?
Oh God, I always really I'll point out stuff that I've made that is not even popular. My essay on whale guns, mods, and friendship was very deeply personal to me, and it's why I think that I was talking about the renewal of purpose and lending agency to gamers, because so many games are told this is how you have fun, and I realized no, the way you have fun is like when you're a kid. And you go, these are my plastic army men, and so has plastic dinosaurs, and so has cowboys and Indians, and hey, we're all going to play with all these things. And you can do whatever you want. I also opened up a lot about some of the difficulties of my life in that video. But in terms of like the biggest, craziest thing we've done, I really liked the Dr. Christmas documentary as much as YouTube hated it, which is funny because that one could easily be in a documentary show, because Mike and I watch documentaries all the time.
Yeah.
We're both huge fans of documentaries, and most of the time we'll watch documentaries. I'd say about half the time we don't finish them because we'll watch it and we'll go, ours is better than that. And we're not trying to be egotistical. It's just that a lot of shitty documentaries are on Netflix.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, if you start feeling like if you've ever taken sleep medication, if you ever start feeling that when watching it, then you already know it's not good.
Right. And so
it shouldn't put you to sleep. You should be interested in it. If
Yeah, you should be
documentaries
like,
put you to sleep, that's great if that's something you want, but
I think
that's called ASMR.
I think the worst part is like tuning into one, and it's something I just have like an ancillary knowledge of, and in the first 5 minutes I'm like, that's wrong. Like, I'm just going to turn this off.
Yeah.
The great, you mentioned this before. First of all, your Dr. Christmas video is great fun to watch, especially just the folks you had come together to recreate. Incidentally, I have a sister-in-law with a PhD who adores that one, and the fact that you guys did that and as part of this corrected the record on some of the stuff that's tied into him. I just enjoy the hell out of that.
The thing that blew my mind on that was I said, no, this can't be real. And I just kept digging, and I'm like, no, not a circular airport. And we kept going and finding more fucked up shit. So my favorite part of that one was when we did the hearing, like the literal testimony from Congress. And you're sitting there going, okay, perhaps we are not getting the full picture of this. Perhaps the guy was just a little weird or crazy. And there's a lot of weird and crazy people back then. But then when we had his own words, where he's
Yeah.
saying, I'm the only man who can produce any kind of plane in the world using true bird flight. And you're like, oh my God, it's real. This guy is the meme. This is great.
It had a meme factor of 7, right?
Yeah. The thing that blew my mind, it's just like that. I do know that documentary got shown at Civil Air Patrol headquarters, and they said that it was just everyone was horrified. Everyone was incredibly horrified to find out, yeah, he got away with it. He was an incredible success.
We've got a note here in the chat that said, I showed that documentary to the senior engineers at Northrop Grumman. So
They're probably screaming. Good. Thank you. Yeah.
Mike, you had mentioned like stuff you made before you started working with Tex. Are there any of those you want to hit on?
No.
Okay.
I'm good. those are for people that I like. I don't really like. I was just there to do the thing. I don't really. It's not something I claimed. So I did all the work behind it. Sure, I could probably say that I'm definitely the owner of that stuff if I wanted to, but it was their project, and I was just there for
A paycheck.
I needed to learn. No, I was it was an educational based kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Back to the community front, one of the things that is attached to the Black Pants Legion that has also been a community project is, and I'm remembering back because the phrase stuck out in my head because it tied to the Weird Al movie, wanting to start your own UHF station.
Yeah.
Which became, well, I'll let you just run with it from there.
Well, I always wanted a UHF station because for me, it's never been about audience size. I know plenty of people who are big streamers who are like, oh yeah, it's great. And I'm like, you can't interact with people. That's meaningless because they're like, hey chat, what do you think about this? And you see chat roll by like the fucking ammeter during Christmas when all the lights are plugged in and the heat's running, just going by a million miles a second. And you're like, that's not an audience interaction. That's just ego fluffing. But when you can bring people together and actually have a conversation and make your own memes and enjoy your own humor rather than trying to appeal to something bigger and greater, that's why I always wanted a UHF station. I'd say, yeah, I will terrorize everyone within this 10-mile radius. That's good enough for me. I don't want the whole world to watch what I do. I just want to make stuff with my friends.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
that became WBPL 76, the Twitch channel, which is run by everybody. I had content creators who said, wait, you let people go out and use your brand to do things? And I'm like, yes, I do. And they go, well, okay, at least you get the money, right? And I said, no, I don't get a dime. And they go, but, and it blew their minds. And I go, right, but it's a community stream that benefits the community. It gets people into streaming. It gets people making stuff. It gets people to the meetups to meet their friends. That's more important to me than any amount of chump change you're trying to sell stuff.
And one of the things that I have noticed about this stream is the fact that, I mean, anybody can just have a gaming stream where they're playing online, but there's a wide breadth of things that show up on WBPL 76.
Oh, yes, including a wrestling show I like.
That has been a lot of fun. I know that we've been talking about having other people come in and do a host. So feel free to ever drop by, Tex. Absolutely.
You're absolutely welcome. You talked about having your own memes and stuff. This was from a little while back because I did West of Loathing on there, and the spittoons were a running gag from that game. But we got started doing that. Crow actually approached me. He said, "Why don't we start doing this?" And I was like, "Sure," because I had been doing Fight Forever on there, and I thought people were burned out on me talking about wrestling stuff. But Crow came to me with this, and it's been a blast. We've had a lot of fun. And
yeah, well, having like an expert who knows the technicals, and I say expert trying to avoid the word nerd because, that's offensive.
I think geek is the appropriate.
Right. But yeah, having somebody who knows all the moves and could just call them out, and I could just piggyback off that. It not only do I learn more about it, but it's like, I don't know, it's just something cool watching your friends as like characters fight. We don't have any control over that. It's all AI. Like
And
the
that's
whole
the best
thing.
part. It adds a bit of uncertainty to it. And I've watched that almost every time, and I've been laughing my ass off.
Well,
I-
I have to say I appreciate that you were good with one gag that I put into it, that ties into the lore
Oh
from the
God.
text talk stuff.
That was such that whole chain of events is hilarious. Because like I was on a stream years ago and people were like, "Oh, do you have a girlfriend?" And at the time I didn't, and they said, "Oh, well, somebody asked something about being in love or whatever," and I was like, "Yeah, I was in this really committed relationship once. I do miss her. She was fun." And people are like, "Oh, as soon as you open a crack of yourself." People
Hmm.
start pouring in interest, and they go, "Well, what were they like? What are they?" And I was like, "Oh, well, they were a baker, and they owned their own bakery, and they were also a power lifter." And so people just snoo jokes immediately. And so every time I stream, they're like, "Oh, it takes us into the tough girls," and I'm like, whatever. And so in order to embrace that meme to kind of deflect it, I
Hmm.
wrote that into the character,
Hmm.
saying, "Oh yeah, his ex, because ex-wife in space, that's perfect because
Yeah.
nobody's perfect in that setting. But rarely do you see divorced people in BattleTech. I don't get it. I guess they just kill each other. But
Yeah.
the thing is, well, that is the intersphere divorce, right? PPC. But the thing is that I wrote it in. Oh yeah, the character's ex is an elemental, and people went nuts over it. Like I got so much email, like, "Oh, what's she like? And do you have any more art of her for personal reasons?" And I'm like, "Wow, that's gross."
The
Should
SpaceX wife,
you
yeah.
should have
Yeah.
said it was a space marine.
Oh God, no. And I always try to take memes in good humor
Yeah.
because if they're designed to be offensive, sure, that's one thing. But if it's in good humor and it's likable, of course, roll with it. Take your lumps.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
the
I think there's a lot of content creators that um take a lot more heat than they should because they don't react poorly to some good-natured like poking.
yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, it's one of those things where I jokingly call my friends, degenerate bastards or whatever, and they call me names too, and then we get on with our day. Some people are a bit too sensitive, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like my best friend won't hear from me for 6 months, and he'll wake up to a text of, "Hey, sweet tits, how you doing?"
Well, that's
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 beautiful.
but that's the thing. We're all about punching each other in the face with kindness.
The I could not have the fact that Crow and I cannot plan anything on our show played out beautifully with that particular gag, because the gag I was gonna do was gonna be Andy Kaufman gets into it with this character. And
Oh
Andy
yeah.
Kaufman did a run in the match right before that was gonna happen. I was like, oh my god. And if you don't know about Andy Kaufman and wrestling, there is a documentary on YouTube called I'm from Hollywood. It's really good. And then ex Mrs. Checkers shows up and proceeds to whip his ass all the way around the ring and back.
And that's the thing that's funny though. I mean, Andy Kaufman got wrestling right. He said, "What if we just made something up and put people into their corners and then just let it happen?"
Kaufman was one of my favorite heels in the history of the business. He was just so good at it. But to go back to the community stream part, it's fascinating because there's plenty of gaming streams, but there's a cooking show, there's a painting show, there's multiple art shows that happen on there, and I mean, these folks would not have had a platform to do something like that without having this community set up. He said,
Well,
leaving it hang for.
Yeah.
no, I'm just thinking.
No, I'm just like that. I'm 100% agree with you.
The idea of building something. Some people try to build a pillar. They want to build a pillar, a taller pillar to stand on. And that's stupid because you can fall from that and hurt yourself. Or you can build a wider stage And those are your two options as a content creator. I have built the widest stage I've seen yet, and I'm not done. So the idea is you can either be alone or you can share all you have. And I've learned that, if you share all you have infinite couches to crash on when things fuck up. But if you're the bastard who hoards everything and sits atop shit mountain, you'll find out that you have built an empire of dirt. And the tide will come for you in turn.
Well said.
It's really fun. You can find just for the folks out there who might not know, you can find that on Twitch, twitch.com/WBPL76. There's also the archive is on YouTube.
Description.
Yeah, look down in the description; those will be down there. But I mean, there's stuff going on all the time, and it's this huge variety. And how much fun is it? Again, it's the Weird Al thing. We've got fun with dirt at 10 o'clock, and then mystery science at 11, and then professional couch wrangling at noon. Not necessarily those exact things, but it's like Disneyland. You never know what you're going to run into.
I've never been to Disneyland. Do they run into a lot of bad things or something? Is it just dangerous?
I'm borrowing the line out of a book series. It's like every day is like Disneyland. It's always something new.
I want to visit sketchy Disneyland. I want to see that. I don't want to feel
Cleveland Land.
Yeah, I don't want to feel safe at a theme park. Like,
the
what's
haunted
the
house
point?
is really haunted. People who built it are still in there.
I had that experience once. I almost died at a theme park once.
Oh.
I went to this theme park. I was in high school, and I have a just god-awful fear of heights. And I'm like, okay, this is safe. Roller coasters are safe to do it. I'll use roller coasters. I'll break my fear of heights today. It was a school trip. We all go to this theme park, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I rode the wooden coaster once, and I made it through, and I'm like, if I did this, I can do it again. And I get on there again, and I'm sitting there, and it clicks up, and it's at the top of the hill, and I'm like, dear God, I hate this. This is awful. And I'm sitting there, and the lap bar pops up.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And I grab it, and I'm slamming it down, trying to get it to latch, and it won't latch. And I'm just like, oh God. And we're getting closer and closer to the drop. And I look down, I look at the drop, and I look down, I look at the drop, and I look down, and it still won't latch. And my thought was, this is as hard as I could. Just my arms all the way wrapped around it. I went down the hill, standing up in that cart with my arms wrapped around that bar. And when it gets to the bottom and it banks, it slammed me all the way down into the seat with my arms under the bar, and the bar locked all the way down. So I finished a wooden coaster in basically a straitjacket the rest of the way. And then whenever we got to the end, and they let me out, and I got off of it, and I very wobbly walked my way away from it and sat on a bench for about 45 minutes. And came to the conclusion, I'm just going to be afraid of heights for the rest of my life. This is it.
Was it Six Flags or Kings Island?
Neither one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, dude. No, I have a fear of roller coasters for almost a similar reason, but I was actually like 4 years old. Because it was the fucking 80s, right? Like my mom. Yeah, I know. Like my mom. I know it's not an excuse,
they walked up to the "you have to be this tall" sign, and she just holds you up next to it and goes, "Look, he's good."
Yeah, she knew a guy who got me on the fucking ride, and I remember the whole experience like vividly because that's how frightening it was. Because I didn't know. I was like, oh, cool, a little ride. I thought it was going to be like one of those cool little like spinny rides or something. It was like a wooden coaster that was barely held together with gum.
Oh, God.
I remember when I was a kid, you don't see it anymore.
Geauga Lake.
But you used to get like those sketchy little carnivals that would just like pop up like in your neighborhood or something. Like, I don't think I'm going to ride those rides.
The ones that Joe Dirt put together.
Yeah. Or, I know I killed quite a few people with some experiments in Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the day.
Who didn't?
I know.
Isn't that the point of the game?
Well, if you needed your morale up a little bit towards the end, you could drop them in the river and drown them, and it wouldn't affect you. But I think I made a few too many sharp turns, or I think there was one I made once, and they would just throw up the second they saw it.
I've made some really, really, really exceptionally bad things in roller coaster games. I did make that one roller coaster that had something like 38 Gs.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that was great.
It just smears left in the seat whenever it gets back to the beginning.
You know, I didn't really ask how people felt because I realized that some things you do just because you can.
What that car ride where it's just a car?
Oh God, yeah, car.
Car.
Ride. So yeah, we made a ride called Car Ride, and it had one car, and the car took like 3 months to go around the whole track. So people are standing in line for years, and then car comes up, and they all get out, and the people are just dying. They haven't seen their family in months. You know, they've probably been. And then I did Cars Ride where there were two.
I love that game so much.
Yeah,
It's like
well, you
the
gotta have
desert
fun.
bus of carnival rides going.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did some bad rides, and I did make a train ride that I called Casey Jones' Magical World of Accidents, and it rolled right off the end of the track with everyone in it, and I was like, oh man, that's amazing.
Who could have seen that coming, right?
Yeah, I didn't finish the track, but I was busy. I was busy. I made my money on hamburgers in that game. I found out that
Oh,
well, we made the B&F Railroad, where if you wanted to use the bathroom or
Oh,
you wanted to
right.
buy food, you had to ride the train that cost like $6.71 in exact change, and then the train would take them over to the restrooms and everything. So Mike found out that people will not pay $8 to shit, but they will pay $4.99.
They
And
will.
so- oh yeah,
I
so-
tested the limit. I was like, how far will they go?
Oh, I thought
How
I was being
far?
I thought I was being a jerk charging $1 for the bathroom.
no,
$4.99's the hey, you're fine at $4.99. They think that's a
$4.99
deal,
or find a bush.
and they paid for it. We were making the bathrooms nearly bankrolled our entire park.
Yeah, we then I have I mean the idea is some people play theme park games because they like designing fun rides. I play theme park games because I like social experiments. They're not the same.
I just like to play them so I can see if I can keep the grounds entirely free of puke.
Oh yeah, no.
That's
Good luck.
Well, I remember that one time we bankrolled our entire park by I had put all of the food stalls had nothing but shitloads of salt. And then drinks were like $12. And so, people are like dying of dehydration and having sunstroke, and I'm like, come get an ice cream. $40.
well,
that's
gentlemen, I
hilarious.
know you were on a schedule tonight,
Right.
And I do appreciate we appreciate you guys taking your time to come on and join us.
Hey, I do have just one question for you guys actually.
Go for it.
Because we were playing Fire Pro Wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is a game you guys recommend that like you guys think is like one of the best wrestling games to play if you're just like wanting to play like a wrestling game and have that experience?
I would say so. I can give you a breakdown. So if you want to go 8-bit, I would say Pro Wrestling on NES is one. Now, 16-bit, really nothing is really the last one I liked, and that was probably 2005.
That was a PlayStation 2 game,
Yeah.
2003, 2004.
I remember that one. That's funny. All right.
And-
okay, that's all
I
I didn't want to take up there, so I just wanted to know if you guys had
Okay.
like because it sounds like you definitely do.
I would say
Well-
if you want to do so if you want to do mobile, there's a card game. Oh no, I can't remember.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not super big in
80s
card games, but there's
wrestling hold on. There's
Well, it's a digital card game.
yeah.
Well,
Well, it's you get the cards and then you can
Necromania, I think.
book matches and then they upgrade and then they're like kind of takeoffs of like real wrestlers and like kind of
What is it? Oklahoma Smith is one of the cards you can use.
yeah, 80s Mania Wrestling
Okay.
is one.
Oh, Mr. Beefy did make a point on the 16-bit with Saturday Night Slam Masters.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay.
So,
And Tecmo World Wrestling. Not from Japan that are well regarded, but you can't play all of those. So
yeah, the localization is tough. Fire Pro is hard to play because you have to track your stamina, you have to track your breath, and the grapple system is more like the WrestleMania arcade game where it's based off of the
I
point
got
of
that
grapple.
experience too.
And so, simming it, I think, is much more fun.
Yeah, because the computer can manage all that way better than I can.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to happen. Poor
Parallax.
Parallax.
Parallax's third time on Knockout.
He's caught criticals all 3 weeks that we've been doing this. Just critical time after time after time. No idea why. I can't find any reason in the stats.
I think it's because the AI learns from every fight or something. It's what it feels like. I don't know if that's true, okay? But I feels like the AI is learning from every fight, and they find out that if you just slam Parallax into the side of the ring, he just gets knocked out. But we were like, yeah, you could do that with anybody, actually, because you said that that's like one of the hardest places to get hit.
Yeah, the apron of the ring is rough because that's where you've got your ring mat is 2x4s. You've got the steel frame underneath it. The padding's usually thinner there because you're not usually bumping on the apron unless you're AEW, and they actually intentionally have a wider apron for it. But yeah, it's a meme, but yeah, it's the hardest part of the ring. And Vince McMahon tore both of his quads trying to slide into it once. There was a fan who he decided he was going to hop the rail and get in the ring on a show this past weekend. And he learned how hard it was because he tried to slide in, hooked his knee into the side of the apron, and hit his head on the bottom rope on the way in. So he tried to stand up once he got in the ring, and then all of a sudden, the referee and 3 security guys are on top of him before he can stand up and carrying him out. And the whole crowd, the whole arena is watching him go, chanting, "You fucked up! You fucked up!"
Was that AEW or WWE?
It was AEW.
Oh,
it was AEW Ring of Honor because they record Collision and Ring of Honor on the same spot.
If you ever see those fan run-ins, those refs are animals.
Yeah, you have to watch out for the refs. There's a tiny little ref in WCW named Mark Curtis, who is a great guy. He was a really good wrestler, but he was so small that people were like, well, we can't really use him, but we like him so much, he would get ref gigs. And this one guy jumps in the ring, twice the size of Mark Curtis. Mark Curtis snaps this front face lock on him and just drops him into the mat, and the guy's laying there like a turtle on its back until security grabs him by the ankles and just whips him out of the ring.
Well, remember Randy Anderson? So this is another guy that's not big. This guy comes to the ring and he just kicks him right in the face and just starts cranking his neck like as hard as he can until the security gets him. So yeah, the refs will be not nice to you.
Yeah, you got to watch them because they'll hit you first. But so, gentlemen, one more time, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules. Everybody, if you're not familiar with them, go check them out. All the links are in the description. The Black Pants Legion website, the WBPL stream. If you watch the stream, you might find out about the auxiliary, but we'll leave you to discover it there. Any parting words you guys would like to have?
No, just be nice, be cool, and keep making shit.
Hell
That
yeah.
is the freest way to remain free.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And everybody out there, thank you for being with us for this episode. We appreciate you so much. This is Shad and Brad and Tex and Mike. We're in all 4. No, usually it's the 3 of us, but we're in all 4 corners. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you. Have a great night.